the results up to this transparentvote.net, and we'll tabulate it, and it'll all be up there, visible, transparent for everyone to see, and it'll keep what it'll do is keep them honest. They can't, because they're doing the tabulation of all the precincts, a monopoly on it. I talked to the Republican Party of Iowa last week. They wouldn't say that. They said they're going to have, the AP came out with a thing after this transparent vote was put up there, and the transparentvote.net site was up and announcing what they're doing there, and they said that they're going to have, the Republican Party of Iowa would have a website. There would be a independent website to post it. Well, I talked to the Republican Party last week of Iowa. They said, well, they're going to announce it in the future. And I said, what do you mean in the future? I mean, this caucus is next Tuesday, you know? They did this 4 years ago. They said they were going to have it posted, all the individual precincts, so everybody could see exactly who was voted for, right, transparently. And they scrapped that thing 2 days before the caucus. Liberty News Network did that last time, and it kept them honest by having volunteer reporters posting it up on, last time, 4 years ago, it was Liberty News Network. But up until that time, nobody had challenged AP in the mainstream media. All the mainstream media get their results from this national pool with that AP does. So they have a monopoly on that.
Let's see, who owns AP? Let's see, the Rothschild bought
major
that.
control, yeah, and AP. The Rothschild banking cartel.
That's right, and that's our real enemies, folks. Hold on just a second. I'm starting to my second half of the recording, and so I need to do somewhat of a commercial message here.
Okay.
He took an oath to defend the Constitution of the United States of America. By some, he's been called controversial.
I'll keep my freedom, I'll keep my guns, try to keep my money and my religion too.
Now, keep in mind that some of my guests have been approached by Homeland Security or FBI saying, why are you going on the Clay Douglas show?
My message to those guys, if they're listening this morning, is go get a cup of coffee. Maybe you'll learn something.
We both took the same oath, to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I don't recall there being an expiration date on that.
I'm going to keep my big BA, keep my friends the same, keep the government out of my business, and y'all can keep the change.
He is the free American, Clay Douglas.
We know what we need, we know who to blame.
Catch the Free American Hour, weekdays at 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern.
I'll keep the USA, and y'all can keep the change.
For the podcast and more details, visit www.freeamerican.com or catch the podcast by phone by calling 832-999-8621.
All right, little commercial message there for you folks. And if you've got a website or you've got a radio show, you can play that on your radio show. There's links up on my website. If we don't network now, if we don't find a way to work together, I'd say we'd all hang alone. What do you think, Walter? Walter Reddy's my guest today.
Yeah.
And we're...
Well, that was Franklin said, if we don't hang together, we'll all hang separately. Was it?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I have some good news. In February, they did a SWAT raid on me. There were about 20 cops. 12 of them were in black ski masks, and they looked like they were impersonating, the ones in black ski masks looked like they were impersonating police officers. You know, they dressed in black, you know, automatic weapons and everything. And I happened to be out in the driveway shoveling snow on Valentine's Day, and they did this raid on me. So the FBI were involved in it, and they were. I ended up. Well, anyway, the case went to the appellate level. The lower court deemed that all I had were 2 legally owned firearms, but we had somebody, someone I had known who was over my house. He claimed that the whole thing was based on claiming that I was brandishing a weapon in my own home.
They shot people. They shot the Iraqi veteran here because he was walking down his hallway with a gun.
Yes. Well, I believe it was. I thank God that I was outside when they showed up, because if I was inside, I think I probably would have been dead. Anyway, they confiscated my firearms. I went to a firearms hearing. The judge didn't allow me to have the time to get an attorney. It was a kangaroo court, basically, and deemed that I was a danger to myself or others, and that I wasn't arrested for anything technically. I wasn't arrested. I was just, my firearms were taken away from me. And so the New American Magazine did a good article on it, and after this happened, and what's just happened recently, we prevailed at the appellate level, and the state conceded that I was denied my due process, and that they reversed the lower court's decision. So, but there were 2 FBI agents involved in this, claiming that I'm a person of interest regarding domestic terrorism, because we don't know why, because, I mean, all I've been doing is advocating constitutional issues.
That's certainly
threatened
enough.
Anyone. Matter of fact, the one person that accused me of this, he reversed himself on the he would refuse to sign a sworn written statement that I had threatened anybody. As a matter of fact, he reversed himself on the stand, saying that he's known me for 25 years. I've never threatened anyone, so
you
the
mean,
whole case was just a joke.
You mean an FBI agent worked against you, testified, was coming against you, that had known you for 25 years?
2 FBI agents went to the local police and told them that I was a person of interest regarding domestic terrorism. We haven't, if they send it back down to the lower court, we don't know what they're going to do, but we know the state has reversed it. But if they do send it down there, we could subpoena these special agents and find out what, in discovery, why they deem me as a person of interest.
Now, I had a lady to send me some money. Try to send me money by Western Union, and she tried it by MoneyGram too. In both instances, it was interrupted. I called her up and said, "They say I don't have the money here." She said, "I got the receipt right here, Clay." And I said, "Well, you better call Western Union, find out what's going on, because they won't give it to me. They say it ain't here." She called me back a few minutes later, and she was kind of laughing. She said, "If it's any consolation to you, you're not just paranoid." They said, "Do you know Clay Douglas?" She said, "For 40 years, yes." "Well, we couldn't give you the money. Why are you sending him this money?" She said, "It's a loan. What business is it of yours?" "Oh, he's on a government watch list." She said, "Since when does a publisher and a talk show host get put on a government watch list?" And today, she can't, this is years later, she can't send a money to anybody by Western Union. She's blocked.
Oh. Let's see.
Now,
Well,
what's happened to you?
Clayton, I'm really, thankfully, Gun Owners of America and United States Justice Foundation both helped, chipped in and helped with my legal defense. So that's how we were able to bring it up to the appellate level and reverse this lower court's decision. So
Larry Pratt's been on my show many years.
Yeah, Larry, it was very nice of him. He stepped up and.
Now, what's happened to you and what's happened to me occurred right after they passed Senate Bill 1955, House Bill 1955 on the Homegrown Terrorist Act. And what they did with that law, you never heard anything about it in the mainstream after that, but suddenly the fusion centers popped up, like the one in Missouri that tried to say, oh, if you got a Ron Paul bumper sticker on there, a Constitution on your dash, or a cell phone camera, you could be a terrorist.
Right, and committees of safety was also listed in that, too, in that MIAC report. But, yeah, I ended up in that.
So this is the federal government going in through the fusion centers, sharing information, but basically controlling what the police do, and they've turned the whole SWAT teams, and they're turning SWAT teams in major cities in America into military strike forces.
Right, and that's why they're being fed, the local police are being fed this false information on, good Americans, and this is why I think this noble lie needs to be shattered, so they have the truth of who the real criminals are.
Well, I've been saying, look, if I'm a right-wing extremist, FBI is pointing me out as a right-wing extremist. After they passed the law in 1959, 55, I walked into the FBI office and laid down a bundle of magazines. I said, there ought to be enough in here for everyone in your office. I wanted you to know who I am. Oh, we know who you are. We know who you are. And I guess the important part of that story is that I was able to walk out of the FBI office. I wasn't arrested. I haven't done anything wrong.
Right.
Starting the militias, which Southern Poverty Law and ADL give me credit for. What part of the Second Amendment don't you understand, folks?
Well, it is a fundamental right. The Second Amendment, you're right. A well-regulated or well-organized militia is necessary for the security of a free state, and therefore it's the right and duty to keep and bear arms. And Clayton, that was right from the beginning, the 20s, 30s. The colonial militia statutes were passed for the colonies. And this is a long history of colonial and state militia statutes, and we had that up until 1903, until this stupid. This is why I don't believe in that. I mean, that thing is wrong. That statute, that Title 10 of the federal thing, 18 to 45. That's wrong on so many points. First of all, like I said earlier, there's no such thing as a United States militia. These were state institutions, okay? Yes, the president can call up these state militias, but he's the only officer when an actual service. Otherwise, it's the governor of the state that's the commander-in-chief of the militia, state militia. And also some of the officers in that, and this was organized at the town level, okay? And it was a duty. I had ancestors when 16 years old, like Elias Judd here in Connecticut. He was born in 1760. When he turned 16 on December 15, 1776. he went down and he signed up. He was 16 years old. 16 to 60 was the Connecticut statute at the time. He signed up for the Connecticut State Militia. His neighbor, next door neighbor, was hung a few months before. Nathan Hale was his next door neighbor. Now, a lot of people don't know who Nathan Hale is anymore. The first American spy to be hung by the British. But anyway, that was the structure anyway. He served 5 years in both the Continental Army and the Connecticut State Militia.
You know, I've had people call me up years ago, Clay, you know the militia that I can join, or my response to them, if there's a militia forming in your area and you don't know all of the people since they were born in that militia, then you are one of them at least is a Fed trying to set you up.
Right. Well, that's what they do. They infiltrate these private militia groups, and that is where we're. Back in the 90s, I didn't know the difference until I learned from Edwin VR has written some very good articles on newswithviews.org.
Yes,
I think it is News with Views. He's got the distinction there of what the difference is here of what we're trying to do. Now, the officers in that the towns, the town, you know, has town, county, state level. This is all by statute. It can be. Again, we haven't had this in over 100 years, but I mean, we want to reinstitute this. But the officers within that town, they know one another. Everyone in the town knows, in their community, knows who's best qualified. They elect the non-commissioned officers, okay? And that's the structure from the bottom up. That's the way it always was, you know? And, yeah, the governor could appoint commissioned officers, okay? But I think there's a unfounded fear out there among a lot of patriots that think, well, my God, you know, if it's a state militia structure, I mean, the governor could oppress the people. Well, that's absurd. I mean, they actually tried to do it in Massachusetts back in the Revolutionary War when they tried to confiscate the ammunition, the gunpowder at Lexington or Concord, where they were storing it. And they're not going to press. We're not going to press ourselves, you know. I mean, they stood up. I mean, they were acting outside the law. The British were, okay, when they came against Lexington.
You know, it's interesting. One year, a couple of years ago, I read the whole Declaration of Independence on July 4th, and with very little changes, we're talking about what's happening right now. And what is happening right now? I mean, in my film Two-Face of FEMA that I made about 10 years ago, I filmed the first Homeland Security meeting after it rolled into, after FEMA was rolled into Homeland Security. And
right.
he's talking about if an emergency, an earthquake, a natural disaster, an atomic attack, or a single outbreak of smallpox in a major metropolitan area, we'll need 400,000 well-armed, well-trained, organized, disciplined troops to control the American people. Or are you talking, they're talking, this is Colonel John Brinkerhoff in my film Two-Face of FEMA. He's, are you talking about the National Guard, Colonel? No, they'll be too expensive. They'll be too expensive in the, and I won't, and they're going to be over in Iraq or Afghanistan or somewhere too, so, we can't do this. You know, it's going to be something else besides National Guard. Now,
well, the National Guard, what about this? There's nothing wrong with National Guard, but it's not the state military structure, the state militia structure. That is not and that's what's wrong with that Title 10 of the United States Code. that 16 to 45. That they designate the organized militia as National Guard, right? Well, Army National Guard, it's a division of the Army. The Army is not the state militia, okay? They're a subdivision of the Army. The Navy's not the militia, right? The state. So it's an unconstitutional statute, Title 10. Okay, and we haven't had really what was originally going on, and I think most people understand if you read some of Edwin Vieira's works, Constitutional Homeland Security, Nation and our Constitutional Homeland Security, which is the state militia structure, is the proper historical and way it was interpreted. Anyway, well,
where should we go? Where should we go from now? Now, what's been set up here with this last law that our Senate passed? Only 7 people. This is basically negating the whole posse comitatus thing. They can bring these troops in. They can use American troops now, and you and I could be found to be a dissident, whatever,
right.
Whatever they want to, enemy combatant, and
right.
we can't even prove.
It's really dangerous, and it's obviously it's just out of control. I know Senator Rand Paul did I think there were only 7 U.S. senators that voted against this. So it looks like we need to get rid of those other 93 that violated their oath to uphold the Constitution, huh?
That's my question here. We've been putting the wrong people in jail. You got all these police. You got this war on drugs to try to bust somebody for something they got in their pocket. When we got billions of dollars and these people are setting us. We're being set up right now, in my opinion.
I think every one of those senators that voted for that needs to be replaced. In this,
they need to be tried for treason. But what happened? Yeah. What happened in the Soviet Union? What happened in the Soviet Union when the communists took over? When the Bolshevik Revolution came over? And you want to call them Bolsheviks or you want to call them neocons? I think we got the same band of people, the people behind communism, which is of course the banksters. It's the banksters. It's the Rothschilds. It's the Rockefellers. It's the Morgans that are doing this, that financed the whole communist revolution.
Right. Right.
And how do we fight that? I mean, all of a sudden, if our government has been replaced by a communist system, well, then I am anti-government. Then I am.
Well, I like to keep it simple. Like Edwin Vieira talks about. We have to reclaim these 2 vital powers, the purse and the sword, because they're all controlled through the purse strings. We get back a sound money system based in gold and silver, constitutional money, at the state level, and there's already a dozen states that have introduced this, some sound money bills, starting with Utah, taking the first small step there. We get that power back, and we get the state militia structure back, and then, we have those 2 vital powers back. That second power, the sword, I mean, it really needs to be. I think this lie has to be shattered because, I mean, you can't even have an honest intellectual dialogue about the M word without doing that. I mean, it'll. At least you can have a conversation then, because
Now, let me ask you about that.
How many people you mention the word militia, I mean, they automatically, have a...
That's right. Now, let me ask you about something else, because I've just run into this. I was ordered to give a speech now. Now, folks, I've got my book here, Mystery Babylon, talks about the New World Order unveiled, talks about the New World Order is the 8th beast talked about in the Bible, and talked about the Jews who say they're Jews but are not, or of the synagogue of Satan. I was to give a speech here in Arizona,
Yeah.
and the woman told me, now you can give a speech, but if you use the word Jew, I'll stop the speech. I'll cut you off. I'll interrupt. And I said, well, let's see. So I can't read the cover of my book. Can I talk about Muslims? Can I talk about Christians? What exactly can I talk about if my book's about Jews? And you got people on here that are saying, well, the Jews are responsible. And when you go back into history and you study what's gone on, there have been a lot of Jews that are responsible for this. That doesn't mean to me that everybody that's Jewish is somehow evil, because I've known Aaron Russo, and Edwin
my
Vieira.
business partner, his father Jewish, his mom's Irish, you know, but they're and you know.
My question is, how do we distinguish it?
But yeah, I mean, like the Rothschilds, they're not even, you know, they're married in, they're not, I don't know what they are, you know, they're married into the blue bloods and, you know, royalty and everything else. I mean, so I mean, I don't even look at it like a racial thing.
To me,
you know,
the Constitution covers you, whatever religion you are. Whatever religion, if you want to bang your head against it, if you want to bang your head against that wall over there, knock yourself out. Just don't expect me to do it too. If you want to get down on your knees, stick your nose in the dirt and your ass up in the air, I'll even try to keep the St. Bernards off of you, you know?
Right.
And you want to pray, get down on your knees and pray to an invisible God about a Cadillac, well, just don't expect me to get on my knees with you, you know? Get off your knees. That's right. That's the freedom of religion, and that's what we ought to be fighting for. And we ought to be working together. The Jews, the Muslims, and the Christians are to link arms against the banksters. The cops are to be escorting the protesters into the halls of the banks. The cops are to be working with us because their families are at risk too.
Right. Well, you know, we have to break that purse strings. You know, if we get back on sound money, then they won't, you know, they're all dependent on, a lot of them are afraid because, you know, a lot of government, people working for the government, or the retirement and everything else, their pensions are all tied up in this. And we've got to get back onto a sound money system. So we're not under that control, because with that, you know, I think it was, who was it? One of the Rothschilds said, you know, I don't care what laws are passed, you know, as long as you give me control of the money.
That's right. Well, that's your biggest. That was one of them. I know that. Yeah. And I've got the whole history of the Rothschilds in there. We need to work together. We need to promote. And we'll have links on your site to this, to both the committees of safety and .org. And what's the other one? Transparentvote.net is what we're trying to do to get honest reporting of the results from the precinct and in New Hampshire primary. These are the best places to get a real honest, transparent vote. We'll do that.
Up there in New Hampshire, half of the votes are counted by hand in public. And we need volunteers if you happen to be living in New Hampshire or are going to be up there, either of these states. Please go there. It's transparentvote.net and
I will put a link up. I'd like to have you back, Walter, and I'll put a link up to your sites and tell people about this show. We've been trying to fight this whole New World Order for 25 years, and now ain't the time to slow down.
Okay, well, thank you, Clayton. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, sir. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.